I used to think silence was comforting. The kind of silence that fills a house late at night when the lights are off and everyone else is asleep. A peaceful silence. A familiar silence. A silence that belongs to you, that wraps around you like a blanket and lets your thoughts settle. But after my sister vanished, silence became something else. Something wrong, something watching, something waiting. It was the kind of silence that felt heavier than the darkness, the kind that pressed itself against the walls, settling into the corners of the ceiling like dust, creeping under the doorframe, slipping into your ears even when you tried to drown it out. A silence that followed you like a second shadow. And it all began the night I found the first note. I didn't think much of it at first. It was just a small square of yellowed paper sitting on the threshold of my bedroom door. No name, no explanation, no reason for it to even be there. Just 7 words, etched in uneven, trembling handwriting that looked like the writer's hand had been shaking uncontrollably. He saw her first. Now he's looking at you. I remember staring at it for a long time, trying to convince myself it was a prank, some messed up joke from a classmate, or maybe one of the detectives trying to spook me into confessing some truth I didn't have. But something about the note wouldn't let me relax. The paper was old, too old. The edges were frayed. The ink looked smudged, like it had been written by a hand that dragged across the page, or maybe like the writer had been crying. And the writing itself, it wasn't the kind of handwriting you learn in school. It was jagged, uneven, like someone who hadn't written anything in years had forced their fingers to remember how to form words. I tossed it in my drawer and tried to ignore the sinking feeling in my stomach. But that night, the whispers began. It was past midnight when I heard it. Soft, faint, like someone had pressed their mouth against the wall behind my bed and whispered my name. I froze. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard it felt like I could hear that too. I held my breath and waited. Nothing. But the silence had changed. I could feel it. Heavy, dense, alive. I didn't sleep that night, nor the next. And by the end of the week, 2 more notes had appeared. One slipped under the front door, the other placed neatly on my pillow. He follows the lonely. Don't let him hear you breathing. I wanted to tell my mom, but she was barely holding herself together, rubbing her temples, staring into empty rooms, sitting on my sister's bed with eyes that wouldn't blink. The police kept coming by, asking the same questions over and over again. They asked if she had run away. They asked if she had enemies. They asked if I had seen anything, heard anything, known anything. I told them no every time, but I began to wonder if I was lying without meaning to. Because how do you explain hearing whispers that shouldn't exist? How do you explain notes that appeared out of nowhere? How do you explain the feeling that someone is watching you from a place where no one should be standing? You don't. Not unless they want to lock you up somewhere for your own good. So I kept quiet, and the silence kept growing. The night everything shifted was the night the whispers moved into my room. I had finally fallen asleep out of sheer exhaustion. My body shut down before my mind could prepare itself. I drifted off in the middle of listening to the floor creak under its own weight.
And for once I thought, maybe I'd rest. But instead, I woke up to breathing. Not mine. Slow, unsteady, deep, coming from the foot of my bed. My heart froze. My fingers twitched under the blanket, but I didn't dare move. My eyes stayed closed because something in me, some primal instinct older than fear, told me that opening them would be a mistake. I listened. The breathing grew closer. A soft shuffle of feet against the wood floor. Slow, deliberate, like the steps of someone who didn't understand how to move quietly, but wanted to try. Something leaned over me, a weight in the air, a pressure on the mattress as if someone placed a hand there. I felt warmth near my face. Warmth, but not alive. More like the echo of a breath, the shadow of warmth that shouldn't exist. I told myself not to open my eyes, not to breathe too loud, not to move. And then I felt it. A finger brushed my hair back. Slow, cold, wrong. I almost gasped, but I bit my tongue until I tasted iron. The pressure in the room tightened. My throat tensed. My eyes burned behind my eyelids, begging to open, begging to look, but fear held me like a chain. Whatever was standing there leaned closer. I could hear the sound of air dragging through a throat that didn't know how to breathe, like lungs that had forgotten the rhythm of living, like something imitating breathing rather than doing it. Then, the whisper. Not into my ear, not into my mind, into the room itself. Just one sound. A soft crackle, like someone inhaling through hollow spaces. And then the breathing stopped. The presence stepped back. The air shifted. Something cold touched the pillow beside my head. Not a hand, just a pressure. Light, delicate. And then it was gone. When I finally opened my eyes, trembling, drenched in sweat, the sunlight was creeping through my blinds. Birds chirped outside. Everything looked normal. Except for the note on my pillow. Do not run. You'll make him curious. My hands shook as I held the paper. I wanted to scream, to throw the note into the fireplace, to burn it, to pretend none of this was real, but denial doesn't erase evidence. That was the day I realized the hollow-eyed man was real. Not a rumor, not a ghost story, not a myth shared to scare kids. Real. And he had been in my room. The next night, I tried not to sleep. I kept the lights on. I scrolled through my phone until the battery nearly died. I walked circles around the room. I kept the window cracked, hoping the sounds of the street would drown out whatever wanted to crawl into my silence. But exhaustion is stronger than fear. I finally collapsed onto the bed sometime around 3 a.m. The whispers didn't wait this time. They started the moment my eyes shut. At first they were scattered, soft breaths slipping through the walls, like someone tracing the wood with their lips. Then they grew louder, closer, heavy, wet, as if spoken through a mouth filled with dirt. I turned on my side, pulling the blanket tight around my shoulders. My breathing quickened, and I tried to steady it. I tried to be silent, to be still, but the whispers crawled under the blanket with me. A soft, cold voice pressed against the back of my neck. I froze. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but the note echoed in my mind. Do not run. You'll make him curious. The whisper spoke again. Only one sentence. I saw her first. My blood ran cold. My heart stopped. My hands clenched into fists. He was talking about my sister. Something pressed against my back. Not a hand, not a body, just pressure. Like the idea of someone touching me rather than the touch itself. A shadow trying to remember how to take form. I didn't sleep at all that night. The following day, I called the police station and asked to speak to the lead detective. His name was Carter. He had always looked tired, but now he looked defeated. He listened to me ramble about the whispers, the notes, the breathing, the feeling of something in my room. He stared at me for a long time before speaking. You're exhausted, you're grieving, your mind's trying to fill gaps. These things happen. He didn't believe me. Of course he didn't. But when I reached into my backpack and pulled out the notes, he frowned. He flipped them over, examined the paper, the ink, the edges. Something in his expression changed. Where most people would have seen nonsense, he saw something familiar. "Where'd you get these?" he whispered. I told him. He swallowed hard. I've seen handwriting like this before, on another case. My stomach dropped. "What case?" I asked. He said it was a missing teenager, 10 years ago. What happened to him? Detective Carter looked me dead in the eyes. They never found anything. Before I could ask more, his phone rang. He stepped outside to answer it. He never came back. I waited in the lobby for nearly an hour before another officer came to tell me the detective had left early for personal reasons. Lie. I knew it was a lie. Something had terrified him, and I suspected I knew what. That night, I tried something different. I moved my mattress into the living room. The lights stayed on, the TV played quietly, the curtains were wide open. I wanted noise, movement, life. I refused to give the silence space to breathe. Around 2 a.m., I must have drifted off. I woke to the TV shutting off. Not flickering, not glitching, turning off. Soft footsteps moved across the room, not from a person walking, but from something learning how. Each step sounded hesitant, uneven, like a child taking their first steps, except heavier, wrong, like the weight came from the shadows rather than a body. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to be asleep. The footsteps grew closer. They stopped right beside my mattress. A cold breeze blew across my face, even though the windows were closed. Something bent down next to me. I felt it. A shift in the room, a sinking in the air, a pressure in my chest. Then the softest whisper touched my ear. "You can run tomorrow." My blood iced. "But I will follow." I couldn't hold it anymore. I gasped. The moment the sound left my throat, the presence snapped backward. The room shifted, the air grew sharp like a predator startled, and then steps. Fast steps. Running steps. Across the room, toward the front door. The door creaked open on its own. Cold air flooded inside, and then silence. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night, or the next after that. But the hollow-eyed man didn't come back. Not right away. He was letting me do it. He was letting me run. Because now, he was curious. And curious things always follow. Farther than you think. Closer than you want. Longer than you can run. And the worst part? I had no idea that he had already chosen where he wanted to follow me to.
I always thought running would save me. Maybe that's human instinct, the belief that distance equals safety, that if you put enough miles between yourself and the thing haunting you, eventually it will give up, grow bored, move on to someone else. But the hollow-eyed man wasn't human. He wasn't bound by distance. He wasn't limited by time or roads or locked doors. He followed differently. The first place I ran to was my uncle's cabin. It was deep in the woods, far from any streetlights, any neighbors, any noise. But it was the only place I could think of that wasn't my house. The only place where I might at least get a few hours of rest. The drive there was quiet. Too quiet. No cars on the highway. No animals crossing the road. No wind against the windows. Just darkness. Stretching endlessly on both sides of the road like an ocean of shadows waiting for something to turn the wrong way. When I finally arrived, the cabin greeted me the way it always had, with the smell of pine, old wood, and the faint trace of cigarettes my uncle never admitted to smoking. I locked the door behind me, checked every window twice, and turned on every light. For a moment, just a moment, I felt like maybe I had done the right thing. That feeling didn't last long. It started with the radio. I hadn't touched it. I didn't even know it still worked. But as I walked past the old wooden counter, the radio clicked on by itself. A faint, static hiss filled the cabin. I froze, staring at it. The dial turned on its own. One notch, then another. Slow, deliberate, thoughtful, as if someone was searching. The static shifted into crackling whispers, not words, but breaths, breaths that reminded me of him. Breaths that scraped, dry and broken, as if dragging through hollow spaces. I stepped back, heart pounding. The radio clicked again, and suddenly, a voice hissed through the speaker. "He knows where you are." I slammed the radio off with my fist. Silence swallowed the room. But it wasn't the peaceful silence cabins are known for. It was the heavy, suffocating kind. The type that presses against your chest and makes your breath feel too loud. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. I sat with my back against the wall, flashlight in hand, blanket wrapped around me like armor. But nothing happened. And the longer nothing happened, the more terrified I became, because the hollow-eyed man never stayed still for long. He was curious. And curiosity is hunger in disguise. By the second day at the cabin, exhaustion dragged at my limbs. My head felt foggy.
My body felt foreign, like I was wearing it instead of inhabiting it. Even making breakfast felt like a chore. I burned the toast, dropped the knife, dropped the plate. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That afternoon, I stepped outside to breathe fresh air. The forest felt safer than the cabin. At least outside, I could see everything.
But the woods were too quiet. No birds, no insects, not even leaves rustling. Just stillness. I took a step forward, and the woods took a step back. Not physically, but the silence seemed to recoil, stretching away from me as if the whole forest wanted to keep its distance, like it knew something was coming behind me. I turned fast, expecting to see him standing there, sunken eyes staring through me. Nothing. But the air had changed. A cold whisper crawled across the back of my neck. Not a voice, just breath. I ran back inside the cabin and locked the door. The second night at the cabin was when sleep finally claimed me. Not because I felt safe, but because the body eventually collapses, even when the mind screams to stay awake. I sat on the couch, wrapped in blankets, flashlight pointed at the door. And at some point, I must have drifted off. When I awoke, the flashlight was off. The bulb had melted inside. The room was pitch black, even though I had left all the lights on. Something was standing next to the couch. I felt it before I saw it. A cold pressure against the air, a sinking weight, as if the darkness had grown thicker in one spot. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I slowly reached for the lamp on the side table. The click sounded like a gunshot. The lamp didn't turn on. I fumbled for my phone on the floor. My fingers touched it, cold, slick with sweat. Dead. I took the deepest breath I could manage and opened my eyes. And there he was. Not inches away, not across the room, but halfway between both, standing beside the fireplace, tall and crooked, limbs too long, neck bent at an angle that made my stomach twist. His skin wasn't pale, it was drained, like something had pulled all color from it and left nothing but the memory of flesh. But his eyes, or where his eyes should have been, empty, black, hollow. Pits that seemed to swallow the weak light leaking through the window. He didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. He just watched. My voice caught in my throat. My hands trembled violently. "Why?" I whispered without meaning to. His head twitched. A crackling whisper escaped from the hollow pits where his eyes sank. "You ran." My stomach lurched. My heart tried to escape my ribcage. He took one step forward. The floorboards groaned like they were screaming. "You ran," he repeated, voice dragging like something speaking through torn lungs. I slid off the couch and pressed my back against the wall. "I'll leave," I blurted. "I'll go. I won't stay here." He didn't move, but the darkness around him did, shifting, breathing, contracting as if alive. "You cannot leave the follow," he whispered. I swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" The hollow-eyed man leaned forward. His hollow eye sockets widened, stretching with a sickening crack. And in a voice that sounded like 100 whispers layered on top of each other, he said, "I want what was taken. My sister. He was talking about my sister. My throat closed, my vision blurred. I don't know where she is, I choked out. He twitched violently, his head snapped to the side, body bending at an impossible angle as if reacting to something only he could hear. Then he spoke one word. Lies. The lights flickered, the cabin shuddered, the shadows writhed, and he vanished. Not walked, not faded, vanished, sucked backwards into the darkness like the world inhaled him. The silence afterwards was unbearable. I grabbed my keys and ran to the car. The moment I shut the door, my phone turned on by itself. A notification lit the screen. One new voice message. Unknown number. My fingers hovered over the screen. I pressed play. Static. Low at first, then louder, then piercing, and beneath it, breathing. The same hollow breathing from the night in my bedroom. Then a voice. Soft. Broken. Trembling. Terrified. My sister. Don't let him see your eyes. The message cut off. I dropped the phone. My hands shook uncontrollably. I started the engine. The car sputtered, stalled, sputtered again, finally roared to life. I drove.
I didn't care where. I didn't care how far. I just drove. The empty highway stretched on for miles. Headlights carved tunnels through the darkness. Trees blurred into indistinct shadows on either side of the road. But the farther I went, the clearer one sound became. Footsteps. Not outside the car. Not behind me. Not in my head. On the roof. Slow. Heavy, measured. Then a hollow whisper pressed against the inside of the windshield. You ran again. I slammed the brakes. Silence. I didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Didn't dare look up. But slowly, very slowly, two hollow pits began to appear in the reflection of the windshield. Sunken, black, empty. He was lying flat on the roof, peering in, watching me. I bolted from the car and ran into the woods. Branches tore at my clothes, leaves slapped my face, mud splashed up my legs, but I didn't stop. Behind me, a heavy thud hit the ground. Then another, then another. Not footsteps, falls, like something dropping from the trees each time I moved. Something following. I didn't dare look back. Eventually, I stumbled into a clearing. A street lamp flickered to life above me, too bright, too sudden. My eyes burned from the light. That was when I heard it. Another voice. Not his. My sister's. Coming from somewhere behind the trees. Don't look at him. Not again. My heart seized. Where are you? No answer. Only the soft rustling of leaves. I took one step toward the sound. Branches cracked. The air grew denser. Then a whisper, right behind my ear. Curious. I spun around. Nothing. Only darkness. The street lamp overhead buzzed loudly, flickering. My skin crawled. My hands shook. Then the light died completely. Darkness swallowed everything. I froze. And in that suffocating darkness, the hollow-eyed man's voice filled the clearing, close, intimate, brushing against the inside of my skull. You cannot run from the hollow. My breath came ragged. I wanted to scream. I wanted to collapse. I wanted to disappear. But instead, something else escaped my throat. A single word. Soft. Barely audible. Terrifying in its truth. Why? Silence stretched. Then, you saw what she saw. A cold hand. No, not a hand. Just pressure rested against my chest. You hear what she heard. My lungs locked. And now, the darkness trembled. Here's you. My legs buckled. My knees hit the dirt. Please, I whispered. Sickening quiet replied. He knelt beside me. The darkness shifted as his form bent low, close enough that the hollow pits where his eyes should have been hovered inches from my face. You belong with the lost. The ground beneath me vibrated. My body felt like it was sinking. Not into dirt, into darkness. Like there was something beneath the clearing, a second world, hollow and waiting. I clawed at the ground, gasping, choking, trying to hold on to anything. Then just as the darkness began to pulling harder, a light. A sudden, blinding white light swept across the clearing, slashing the shadows apart. A car. Headlights cutting through the trees. The sinking stopped. The darkness recoiled, and the hollow-eyed man stepped backward, his entire form flickering like a flame trying not to die. The headlights grew brighter. He vanished into the woods, silent, fast, inhuman. My chest heaved, my throat burned. I staggered to my feet and stumbled toward the road. A man leaned out of the car window. "Kid, you okay? You look like you saw a damn ghost." I didn't answer. Couldn't. He opened the passenger door. "Get in. I'll take you to town." Something in me screamed not to trust him, not to trust anyone, not to go anywhere enclosed. But I was weak, cold, barely standing. And the forest behind me whispered. Not wind, not branches. Whispers. His whispers. I forced myself into the car. Know how long I stood there in the clearing, frozen between the man my sister feared and the creature she'd become, or been turned into, or replaced by. Time didn't pass normally in that place. Everything felt suspended, like the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for me to make a choice I didn't understand. The hollow-eyed man didn't move. He didn't breathe. He didn't even exist in the same way the rest of us do. He was simply there, occupying space the way a nightmare occupies a dream, effortlessly, naturally, as if he'd always belonged. My sister, or the shadow wearing her shape, stood behind him, peeking over his shoulder like a terrified child hiding behind a parent. Except she wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of me. That realization hit me harder than any terror I'd felt so far. Whatever she had become, she believed I was the danger here. And maybe in a twisted way I was, because I wanted her back. The real her. The one who laughed at stupid jokes, stole my hoodies, and fell asleep during movies. The one who disappeared that night on her way home. The creature in front of me wasn't her, but it remembered her. It mimicked her. That made it worse.
The man finally raised his head. The hollow spaces where eyes should be turned toward me like pits leading somewhere far below the world. The dirt around my feet vibrated as if the ground itself recognized him. He didn't speak with a voice. He didn't need to. The message hit me somewhere below thought, a cold sensation sliding behind my ribs. Do not choose the old world over the new. I didn't know what that meant. Forest did. The trees around us shuddered. Their branches shook without wind. The shadows on the ground bent toward him, not cast by him, but pulled toward him like eager things greeting a master. My sister's voice trembled out of the darkness behind him. She whispered, "Don't go back. You can't go back if you've been seen." I felt like I was drowning while standing upright. "Is it really you?" I asked her. My throat hurt. My voice barely came out. "Please, just tell me if you're..." "No." Her answer cut through me like ice. But I remember her. And that's close enough. Closer than anyone else can give you. The hollow-eyed man tilted his head in a disturbingly human gesture. Curious, patient, almost kind. As if offering a choice. As if the world he belonged to was something beautiful, if only I stopped fighting long enough to see it.
But I didn't trust the beauty here. Everything beautiful twisted as soon as I looked too long. I took a step back. The ground moaned under my shoe. My sister, the thing wearing her voice, whimpered and pressed herself closer to the hollow-eyed man. He raised one impossibly long hand and rested it gently on her head, like a father reassuring a frightened child. The gesture was so soft, so tender, it made the world feel 10 times more wrong. I turned. I ran. The forest reacted violently, like it couldn't believe I'd chosen to flee. Branches snapped overhead, roots tore from the ground. The air thickened until every breath felt like inhaling whetstone. But I kept running. The forest wasn't infinite. It couldn't be. If I just kept moving, a whisper brushed the back of my neck. "It is bad to run." Not shouted, not spoken, just placed inside my head, the same way someone places a hand on your shoulder in the dark. I tripped, hit the ground hard, rolled over just as the forest behind me folded open like a curtain of flesh, and he stepped through. The hollow-eyed man didn't walk closer. He arrived closer, each movement skipping the space between moments. One instant he was 20 feet away. The next he stood at my side. Always silent, always watching. My vision blurred around the edges. My hands shook uncontrollably. I braced myself for him to end it, to take whatever part of me he'd been following, consuming, interested in. Instead, he reached down and gently placed the same kind of yellowed paper note beside my left hand. I stared at it without touching it. I didn't have to pick it up to read it. The message burned into my mind before my eyes even focused. You were chosen because you remember. The meaning snapped into place with terrifying clarity. He hadn't followed my sister first. He hadn't hunted her. He had found her because of me. Because I remembered old things, forgotten things. Stories told in a family that always whispered certain warnings, but never loudly enough. He chose her to reach me. My stomach turned. My throat tightened. The forest changed then. Subtly, but catastrophically, the light bent into impossible angles. The trees grew longer, stretching upward until they disappeared into a sky that wasn't the sky I knew. The wind began whispering my name and my sister's voice, thousands of overlapping versions of it, as if every memory of her had been peeled out of my mind and pinned to the air. The hollow-eyed man crouched down beside me, not predatory, not angry, just patient. He raised a hand and touched the ground. Reality cracked. Not like glass, not like stone, but like a memory. The clearing dissolved into fragments of my childhood, birthday candles, school hallways, my mother's voice calling for us to come downstairs. All of it flickered around us in broken pieces, falling like ash. He was showing me something, not threatening me, demonstrating. He controlled memory, or fed on it, or lived inside it. My chest tightened, my vision tunneled. I forced myself to breathe. You took her. You took my sister and turned her into something else. His hollow head turned towards me. Something inside those empty sockets moved. Not eyes, not anything human, but something that saw me anyway. The new message slipped into my mind like a needle through skin. She changed because she accepted. You will change because you resist. No, 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 no. I scrambled backward. My hand brushed against something soft, fabric. I looked down. My sister's backpack. The same one they found in the ditch, except now it was whole, untouched, clean, as if it had never been lost at all. I grabbed it, and everything inside me snapped into desperate motion. I forced my legs to move, forced myself to stand, forced myself to do the one thing he hadn't expected me to do. I faced him directly. You follow people who run. My voice cracked, but I didn't stop. But do you know how to follow someone who refuses to move? The wind stopped. The forest froze. The hollow-eyed man tilted his head again, but this time there was something new in the gesture. Uncertainty.
The trees bent toward me, straining like they were waiting for permission to swallow me whole. But I didn't give it. I closed my eyes, not to escape, but to remember. Not fear, not loss, not the twisted imitation of my sister standing in the forest. I remembered her, the real her. Her laugh, her voice, her warmth.
I held those memories so tightly they burned. The forest screamed. The hollow-eyed man staggered, the first movement he'd made that wasn't smooth, perfect, inhuman. The hollow pits of his face widened into something like shock. The world around us rippled violently. The sky tore open. The ground convulsed. Something was wrong for him. Very wrong. Because I wasn't letting him shape the memories. I wasn't letting him eat them. I was holding them too tightly for him to take. My sister isn't yours, I said. My memories aren't yours. The forest convulsed again, shaking like a dying animal. And then, silence. The hollow-eyed man straightened slowly, regaining his composure. The forest calmed with him, as if its heartbeat matched his own. He gave me one final look, unreadable and ancient. A last thought pressed into my skull. This is not victory. This is delay. The ground beneath him split open. A void swallowed him whole. The forest collapsed inward like it was being erased. Darkness swallowed everything. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on my bedroom floor. Morning sunlight streamed through the window. The backpack was in my hands, but my sister, my real sister, she didn't come back with me. Inside the backpack was one final note. Not yellowed, not old, fresh, like it had been written that morning, in handwriting that I recognized. Hers. Don't forget me. He only wins if you forget. The meaning hit me at once. The hollow-eyed man didn't steal people. He stole memory. He erased. He replaced. And he was waiting for the day I could no longer remember the sound of my sister's laugh, so he could claim whatever was left. I keep her backpack beside my bed now. I read the note every night. Because if I forget her, even once, I know exactly who will be standing at the foot of my bed when I wake up. And this time, he won't come alone.